The way things are going, Andrew, for Donald Trump, is this the most dramatic comeback in US political history?
Well, it's certainly one of them. He claims that, but Richard Nixon's comeback in 1968 could be seen as a more dramatic comeback. He had said the press won't have him to kick around anymore when he lost California in 1962, but it certainly is a dramatic comeback. And it's a big deal for the Republican Party to win an outright majority of the popular vote for the first time since 2004, and really only the second time since 1988.
One of the issues, we go back over the years, the famous quotes about it's the economy, stupid, for the Kerry campaign, I think it was, back in the day. You were a speechwriter, remind me, was it?
It was Bill Clinton.
It was the Clinton campaign. When you're looking at this now, as a former speechwriter, looking at the messaging from Donald Trump, looking at the messaging from Kamala Harris, who succeeded, who failed, to what extent? Is it down to Trump's unique brand of, let's face it, often saying things that absolutely are not true in any way that's quantifiable, but he gets a message across? Compare that with Kamala Harris, as you see it.
Well, I think a lot of Americans no longer get news from reliable sources. I think they don't really follow the facts. Donald Trump is a compelling speaker. He's a demagogue in many ways. Harris was much more moderate as a speaker. Americans really didn't get a chance to know her. She was in the background during the Biden administration. And just campaigning for 17 weeks. And I don't think she did a great job getting her message out. And I think the message is that Trump put out about the economy doing badly, which it wasn't doing badly. It isn't doing that badly. And about immigration being out of control, which is clearly a problem in the US, as it is in France, as it is around the world. But those messages resonated with Americans.
One of the points is very interesting that you touch upon there is actually how you get that message across. Now, let's have a listen to Donald Trump, because one of the big issues was about, and we heard this from Barack Obama, the former president, saying there weren't enough black men who were willing to vote for Kamala Harris. He said, is it because it doesn't feel right voting a woman? Well, potential President Trump, former President and potential President Trump, has been saying that that's an area that he's had great success. Let's have a listen to the speech just a couple of hours ago in Mar-a-Lago.
They came from all quarters, union, non-union, African-American, Hispanic-American, Asian-American, Arab-American, Muslim-American. We had everybody, and it was beautiful. It was a historic realignment.
What is interesting, when you look at some of the figures, Philip, you look at Florida, for example, the Latin American vote towards Donald Trump has increased from his base back in 2020. We're seeing this reflected with African Americans as well, his base increasing. And people were saying, well, actually, there is a real target here for Kamala Harris, a natural win potentially. What do you see going on under the bonnet here?
Donald Trump is a populist, and he's a showman, and I agree, he knows how to speak in public. Whatever people have been saying about the events of the past few days, when we had at one of his campaign rallies this statement that Puerto Rico is an island, floating island of garbage, thought that was going to dissuade many Hispanic voters from voting for Donald Trump. It didn't come off. They were still willing to do it. I think the overriding worry is the economy and the fact that they don't believe that Kamala Harris is the person who's going to be able to get the economy back on its feet, even though the economy is doing much better than it was previously.
It's inflation. That's the issue
and
for a
the
lot of people.
inflation issue being the key issue here. And I think that the second point is that they prefer someone like Donald Trump, who appears more energetic, appears to be better experienced, is a businessman. All of those issues brought together will make them feel more at home with the idea that maybe he is the one who's better able to deal with the situation, which, when you think about it, is quite extraordinary, because Donald Trump is threatening to throw out all the illegal immigrants in the United States. Many Hispanics who've come over from Mexico or other countries, even Puerto Rico, risk being deported if they don't have working papers. They're quite important people in industry in the United States where they work. It's strange to think that some of their relatives who have the right to vote in the United States would vote for Donald Trump, the man who's going to throw them out if he gets into office. So there is something there which shows that there was a rejection of what the Democrats were proposing. There was a rejection of Kamala Harris. There was a rejection of the fact that they don't believe after 4 years of Joe Biden in the White House that they are better off today than they were when Donald Trump was in the White House between 2016 and 2020. And that's pushed them to vote for a man who could cause problems for them afterwards. But it's better to vote for him than for Kamala Harris, where we risk being worse off financially with 4 more years of the Democrats in the White House.
Let me bring Wasim here in Arizona. It's a very good point. Actually, we're going to go back to Wasim in a minute. Philip, let me raise this point with you because there's a couple of issues here. So first of all, Florida. I listened to a number of Latin American voters talking about how they would vote, being Catholics, for Donald Trump because they were against changing the abortion ban. Now, we thought there was a lot of analysis suggesting actually that might have a wave back towards Roe versus Wade, having some kind of better protections for the right to abortion. But it seems from a lot of people, a lot of analysis we're hearing, the Catholic Latin American community voted the other way. If we also look at, you talked about the point that Kamala Harris is raising on abortion, talked about, the unpredictability that she called Donald Trump a fascist as well, and so did one of his former chief of staffs. But I just wonder, 2 issues, one that Andrew raised as well, the economy, the second being immigration. Did that label of somebody who was, Kamala Harris was supposed to look after the border, even though she was actually tasked with looking at the situation from Central American migration, that became almost a blame stick for her and charged the vote around Trump?
Something that Donald Trump is very efficient at doing is calling people names. He was calling a comrade Kamala, like he was calling Joe Biden Sleepy Joe Biden. And these names do eventually have a negative effect on the person that they are attributed to. And I think that there was a lot of concern about what Kamala Harris would actually do concerning the border, whether or not she was responsible for letting the border be open, letting millions of foreigners come into the United States who were causing trouble. Remember Donald Trump talking about the fact that migrants are coming in and eating cats and dogs, and they were going to be causing everything bad to the detriment of the cohesion of the United States. And I think many people have bought into this message, but there's a more profound message in there, which I think is quite interesting when one considers, was it Donald Trump himself who's responsible for the divisions in the United States that we're seeing right now, or is Donald Trump the result of the divisions that were already in existence and growing that came along and pushed him into the White House in 2016 and brought him back into the White House in 2024? The evangelists, the fact that many people in the United States are against abortion, they're scared of losing the right to the Second Amendment to control guns, have their own weapons at home. They don't like the woke community. Men feel like they're losing their masculinity in a way in the United States. All of these are issues that Donald Trump has stood up against, and that's why people have been, I think, more keen to vote for him than maybe Kamala Harris, who they're unsure about where she's going on all of those issues, particularly on abortion as well. And that's why we've seen this wave of support for Donald Trump, which in many ways is even more surprising for women voters. If you think about the abortion situation in the United States, the end of Roe versus Wade, and the fact that Donald Trump said just the other day, I'm going to sort things out for women, whether women like it or not. So that doesn't seem to have had the effect that many thought it would have on persuading women voters to vote for Kamala Harris.